Cedar Fair destroyed a few parks before, and in this video I'm talking about Dorney Park. Dorney Park was a major amusement park located in Allenton, Pennsylvania. The reason I say was is because it isn't anything special now. The park was a small park back when Cedar Fair bought it in 1992, and just 10 years later it was competing with some of the biggest parks in the country. The park is located in an area near a few other major amusement parks, but it wasn't long before this park went from being in neck-and-neck competition with some of the greatest parks on the planet, back to the small park it once was. This is a story of how Cedar Fair built and destroyed Dorney Park and why they did. Dorney Park's story is a little complicated. We'll go a lot into the Cedar Fair chain and the park's competition, all to explain the reason I figured out why Cedar Fair built and destroyed the park. The story starts in the early 90s. In 1992, Cedar Fair purchased Dorney Park for close to $50 million. This was the first park the company bought besides the original two, Cedar Point and Valley Fair. At the time, the park had just 5 roller coasters, 2 wooden, 1 family coaster, 1 kiddie coaster, and 1 extreme steel coaster. That wasn't too bad of a lineup at the time. For comparison, Six Flags Great Adventure, which competes with Dorney Park, also had only 5 coasters at the time. Cedar Fair was on a park buying spree at the time, and after buying Dorney Park, they bought Worlds of Fun and Knott's Berry Farm over the next 5 years. 1992 was when the coaster world was really going crazy. B&M had just come out with their invert model, and everyone was rushing to one of their competition by building bigger and better coasters. Cedar Fair gave Cedar Point 2 massive B&Ms with Raptor in 1992 and Rougarou in 1996. They also gave a massive coaster to Valley Fair, which was the original Cedar Fair park, with Wild Thing, a Morgan Hyper, in 1996. It took 5 full years from when Cedar Fair purchased Dorney Park until they installed any new coaster. 1997 brought the company's first major investment into the park. They opened Steel Force, a 200-foot tall massive Morgan Hyper coaster. The park seemed to be headed in a good direction, but when comparing it to the other parks Cedar Fair purchased, you notice something. In 1995, the chain purchased Worlds of Fun, but it only took 3 years for them to get a new coaster. Oh, and the other park the chain bought, Knott's Berry Farm, in 1997, well, they got a new coaster in 1998 as well. So while it took Dorney Park 5 years to get a new coaster, its sister parks, Worlds of Fun and Knott's Berry Farm, got it in 1 to 3 years. 1999 brought 2 smaller scale coasters to Cedar Point and Valley Fair as the company was gearing up for 2000. The craziest year ever. Millennium Force opened at Cedar Point and Worlds of Fun got another coaster. But that wasn't the only thing that made the year crazy. I mean, yeah, the first Giga coaster is something special, but that was also the year Dorney Park would open 2 new coasters. Not 1, but 2. Granted, they were smaller scale coasters, but still, 2 coasters in 1 year. 1997's investment of Steel Force must have been so successful that the chain decided to give Dorney Park 2 new coasters that year. After a major year in 2000, you'd think the chain would take a break for a year, and they did. But one park still got a coaster in 2001. And no, it wasn't Knott's or Cedar Point. It was yet again Dorney Park. But this time, it wasn't a family coaster. This time, the park opened their first B&M and invert. The park now had a total of 9 coasters. Following Dorney Park's crazy investments over the previous few years, they didn't get a new coaster until 2005. But in 2005, they got another B&M. This time a floorless Hydra. Looking back at this park, it would seem Cedar Fair was setting the park up to be one of the world's best. But everything would change in 2006. 2006 brought 5 new parks to the Cedar Fair chain, the Paramount Parks. Cedar Fair now had to manage another 5 parks, so you'd think that investments would slow down to Dorney Park. But in 2008, they got yet another coaster, an Intamin Impulse coaster. However, sadly, that same year the park's Schwarzkopf Looper laser was closed, so the park was left with a total of 10 coasters. After 2008, the park wouldn't see a new coaster until 2012. It's not such a long wait for a new coaster, but in 2010, the park closed 2 more coasters, a family coaster and a kiddie coaster. 2012 brought Stinger, a relocated Vekoma from California's Great America, and that was it. That would be the last coaster ever this park would receive. Cedar Fair built this park up all the way to its peak in 2005, but by 2012, it was already on its way down. Why would Cedar Fair do this? Originally, I thought it had to do with the Paramount parks they acquired in 2006. I thought maybe they saw bigger potential in the new parks they purchased, and that's why they decided to move away from investing in parks like Dorney Park and Valley Fair. But that really didn't make much sense. If they were investing in the Paramount parks because they had bigger potential, they still should have given Dorney Park a coaster between 2012 and now, even if it were a small one. Another thing bothering me about this theory is they weren't really investing in all of the Paramount parks. It was mainly Carowinds, Kings Island, and Canada's Wonderland. The other 2, Kings Dominion and California's Great America, weren't being treated nearly as well. That's when it hit me. The real reason Cedar Fair left Dorney Park in the dust. In 2005, when Dorney Park opened their B&M floor list, there was something else going on. That was the same year Six Flags Great Adventure, their biggest competition, opened the world's tallest roller coaster, Kingda. Now, who's going to choose a B&M floorless over the world's tallest coaster? Besides, Great Adventure had a floorless already, so you could ride both if you went there. It's deeper than that. In 1997, Dorney opened Steel Force, but Great Adventure opened 4 new coasters between 1998 and 1999, 2 of which were family coasters. Dorney Park spent the 2000 year getting 2 family coasters and then a B&M invert in 2001. But Great Adventure opened a B&M Hyper Nitro in 2001 and a B&M Flyer Superman in 2003. Dorney was getting 1 coaster every time Great Adventure got 2, yet somehow it was still surviving. In 2005, that would change. That's when Dorney opened a floorless coaster that Great Adventure already had since 2001. The Great Adventure opened Kingda, world's tallest coaster that year. The next year, Great Adventure got El Toro, one of the world's best coasters, followed by a family coaster in 2007. Cedar Fair gave up on Dorney Park for one simple reason. Cedar Fair doesn't like competition. Just take a look. Every Cedar Fair park that started losing to competition was left in the dust. Dorney Park is one example. Kings Dominion is another. Dorney Park was facing major competition, and Great Adventure wasn't even their biggest competitor. Hershey Park was. Hershey was opening massive coasters every few years. Dorney was late to the game. Hershey got their B&M invert in 1998, and Dorney's came in 2001. The reason Hershey Park is still a huge competitor with Six Flags Great Adventure is because they continued adding coasters and staying in competition. Dorney didn't do that. Cedar Fair quit on Dorney, and they destroyed the park, bringing it back to the small park it once was. It's sad that this had to happen to Dorney Park. Dorney Park has some of the biggest population centers to draw from, with Pennsylvania and New York right nearby. They could have been one of the biggest parks in the country right now, but sadly they are irrelevant. Hopefully Cedar Fair finds it in them to fix up this park and make it relevant again. A ground up RMC hybrid will be a good start, cause there's none in that area.